Well, now we're going to discuss the last important aspect of this lecture, which is connected to trustworthiness. And what is trustworthiness? Trustworthiness is the concept that tells us that this research can be trusted, as the name says, and that this research is actually something that can be used to generate knowledge, something that is valid in a way. We will discuss that word because it's important. Also, trustworthiness nowadays is very important because every time we have more uh, kind of fraud, we have more like unethical behaviors that make research not really mm, to be trusted. So I think it's very important to highlight how when we do research, we make sure that we are taking care and how we are taking care of trustworthiness aspects. So in quantitative research, we actually want to show trustworthiness in 4 dimensions. We have validity, that we have internal and external validity. We will discuss that. We also have reliability and we also have objectivity. I will discuss each of them and how to measure and how to demonstrate that our research has this trustworthiness aspects. But before we go into each of them, uh, if I want to teach you what is validity and what is reliability, I think these questions are key. Validity answers to these questions. Are we measuring the right things? So, for example, if I want to measure company performance and I use ROI, is it really performance or not? Many studies use it as a way to measure performance, so maybe it's possible. Or if I measure performance with the taxes that the company is paying, that is more controversial. I think there are less studies that use that, so maybe the validity in there could be strange. And then on the other thing, we also have reliability, which it basically answers to these questions. To this question, are we measuring things right? So are we really doing it correctly? Are we did we really show that this is the ROI of the company, or is that calculation incorrect? So in here, the question is ROI is a good variable to measure performance, that is validity, and in reliability is the way this ROI, the way this number is calculated is actually ROI. There are no mistakes in the calculation. Reliability is on that the number is correctly measured, that we are measuring things correctly. But let's go into the specific aspects. I think I just gave you some of the examples that I had in this slide. I think I just told them. So I will move to the specific slide on validity. So internal validity tries to show that the study in itself from the inside, like it says internal, is coherent. So the whole study strategy should be coherent. So how do you write this when you write in your dissertation or in your assignment? How do you write that you have internal validity in your project? Well, discuss transparently and justify why you are doing where you are doing this and how you're doing this, that you use concepts and that you use indicators that exist in previous studies. That is very good for internal validity. That will be that shows that your study design is built on previous research. So then that it also it's a design that can be trusted because it's built on previous research or using questions that have been already tested. Then the next point is about explaining how the variables are being measured and is connected to the previous. If in previous studies people have used a scale from 1 to 7, maybe it's good to keep that. Or if you are going to change it, make sure that you want to that you actually justify the change. Like maybe not 1 to 7, but 1 to 10. But why and how is that important? If not, if you're going to use the same, state that you are using the same and that that is coherent. That is internal validity, basically showing that your study design is coherent. And the one good approach of doing it is by demonstrating how you are building on previous research. Like you are not inventing anything drastically new, because that is kind of risky. That opens a lot of questions. That your methodology is rigorous because it's based on many previous studies that follow the same approach. Now, the next point is about external validity. In external validity, you want to discuss basically this point on how your sample, the sample that you are studying, can be generalized to the population, basically the sample versus population. So please explain and demonstrate in here maybe one paragraph where you explain why your sample is similar to the population. For example, you can say like you have a similar gender distribution, similar age distribution, like there is, I don't know, maybe 50% of accountants are female, and in your sample you have the same. Discuss this when you discuss external validity. Another important thing to discuss in external validity is that when you do your survey, you will not only collect the data that you want, the concepts that you want, you will also collect control variables. And we will discuss that in the workshop. But we also need control variables for some to improve the reliance of the and in this case the validity of the data analysis, especially with the regression model. So we will discuss more aspects about control variables, but it's something that you should discuss when discussing external validity. And similar to that, we also have a test that you will learn in the workshop, which is multicollinearity. You need to show that there is no multicollinearity in the data that you have. Multicollinearity, I can explain it quickly now in the lecture. We will go in more detail in the workshop, but multicollinearity is when you are measuring something twice with two variables. For example, a typical multicollinearity problem is if you have age as a variable, but also experience. Generally, the older you are, the more experience you have. So then mathematically, they behave very similar, and we have a multicollinearity problem. We will learn about this, how to fix it, how to test for it, all of this. So we have two. We already have discussed two, internal and external validity. We need two more. The next one is reliability. And reliability, again, as I said, it tries to show that we are actually measuring things correctly. So we also divide reliability in two ways, in terms of the variable and in terms of the analysis. Variable reliability can be tested with something that we call the Cronbach alpha test. We will learn that in the workshop. But it basically tries to explain that the variable, the questions that we use to construct the variable, remember that we will have like 5 different questions, that these 5 questions are not that different or that similar in a sense. Like you are asking 5 times for that variable, but it would be weird if the respondents answers exactly the same to the 5 questions. That would be like, in reality, you are asking the same question just 5 times. You need certain degree of diversity in the answers. You need some degree of change. So this Cronbach alpha test will test for that. We will discuss this in the workshop too in more detail, but it's basically that when you are asking 4 or 5 questions for the same variable, that the answers are a little bit different, not too much because also that's bad, but that is how you demonstrate the reliability of your variable. And then the reliability of the analysis on itself is basically to test from different angles. Like maybe you test, we will also do this in the workshops, like maybe you test with randomized effects, or maybe you test with maybe what happens if you remove the top 10 answers? Will you get similar results or not? This is something that we call analysis reliability test. We will do this test in there, but basically what I want to tell you is that if you want to discuss the reliability of your research, you need to discuss how you perform these tests and the result. Again, don't worry. In the workshop, we will do it. We will learn how to write about it. And finally, the last aspect of trustworthiness is objectivity. Objectivity in quantitative research, well, that's the main kind of the spirit of quantitative research, to be objective. So you also need to write a paragraph at least where you explain how this research doesn't have a hidden agenda, how biases are not included in this quantitative research. For example, you can say that the questions again were borrowed from previous studies, that it's not just one study, it's like several studies have used the same variable or the same question. That can be a way to show that there is no hidden agenda in there. You can also say that when you identify the sample, you didn't kind of on purpose choose the sample. It was a bit random, like you didn't choose your friends, or you didn't choose a specific type of accountant that you wanted to test. So discuss in a few sentences how you made sure that the data you collected, that analysis that you made, and all of these things were not influenced by your subjectivity. Totally different approach to qualitative research. In qualitative research, it will be different. So that is the end of this lecture. I think we discussed four important aspects regarding quantitative research. This is lecture a bit theoretical, but in the workshop, you will learn a lot about how to operationalize and how to do all of these things.